Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the Student's Opinion. Today, we are here for the 8th episode. What is the best college admission system? As 2022 wrapped up, our listeners in their final year of high school finished up with their college applications. And in early 2023, most college entrance tests will be held. These are two vastly different systems of colleges selecting students to their programs. Medhaansh, could you explain both systems in greater depth to our listeners?
Certainly, Vineet. So we have, as Vineet said, we have two different types of systems of college selecting students to their programs. And the first would be the test-based, also known as the entrance examination system, as seen in countries like India as well as several other countries. Now, what exactly it is that a college entrance examination is a standardized aptitude test that measures your aptitude in various areas such as verbal, math, analytical, and writing skills. These tests are not designed to measure what you have learned in school. Rather, they measure your potential to perform well in the future. In India specifically, the entrance tests you take post 12th grade are National Eligibility Cum Entrance Test, NEET for short, for aspiring medical students, the Joint Entrance Examination, JEE for short, for aspiring engineering students, and the CLAT, the Common Law Application Test, as seen in the case for aspiring lawyers. Now, the second system is the college application system, which is famously seen in the United States. They see your college essays, extracurriculars, the opportunities that you have had, the work that you have put in all across. Overall, they see your growth as an individual as a whole instead of solely relying on one particular examination or your GPA scores or your credits, etc. They look into who you are as a person and ultimately make a decision on whether or not you would become a right fit for the college. Personally, I prefer the college application system because when I look on the test-based entrance examination, I see big major disadvantages compared to the college application system, and some of them are number one, which would be competitiveness, as the number of students that have increased or who sit for these particular examinations. In India right now, I know a large number of my friends, a large number of my relatives, friends and children are all sitting and studying for and preparing for NEET, JE, CLAT, so that they can break the entrance examination and get into their desired universities. And as a result, in a country like India, which has such a huge population, the competitiveness rises to its extreme, and as a result, making the papers much more harder to crack and adding a load of pressure on the student as well. Second, we forget the fact that one exam holds too much significance. The student who might be sitting for that particular examination on that particular day might not be having the best day of his life. He must have been his best in his coaching center. He must have been getting his top ranks. He must have been scoring 100 on 100, 600 on 600, whatever the score might be. But we forget the fact that too much pressure is given on one particular examination. If the student fails to give his 100% of what he knows into the examination, he or she is bound to not get a very good or eligible rank that would get him into his desired university. The third point which I see is with a large number of pressure into the examination itself. There have been an increase in the amounts of tuitions and the consultants and education counselors, just adding to the pressure on the bank balance of the parents and also putting a huge amount of pressure on the student as a person as a whole.
Well, Medhaansh, you brought up like a flurry of points right there on why the test-based system is not perfect. And I'll be the first to admit it is not perfect. And I believe no system is perfect, neither is the college application system. But firstly, I think I have to address the points that you brought up. And the first one is competitiveness. And Today, like the population is at 8 billion, like I mentioned last week in the ChatGPT podcast. So with so many people, there are just so many more students who are aspiring to go to college. Like previously, over the past like two generations, most poor people did not want to go to college. They did not feel that it was a good investment. But now, today, right, a lot of people, even poor people and the underprivileged, even they believe that college is the best way for them to rise in social status. And that's actually very true. Like if you get a good college education, your prospects of getting a job are improved and you can have a better life by earning more than you would have if you had not gone to college. So that gets more students into these exams in the test-based system. And when there are more students taking a test, but then the number of seats you have in your educational institutions is limited, you're obviously going to have more competitiveness for the same seats. And that, I think that's what makes the system competitive. And you see that even in your college application system, except that there it's not just one test where you see a lot of competition, you just see it throughout the college application process. So like you mentioned in the college application process, that they look at your extracurriculars, your college essays, your grades, and what you've done based on the opportunities you've been given. And let's just take extracurriculars. People who want to go to like top universities have to have really good extracurriculars. And that means they have to start competing from a very young age. Right? They have to be the best at the extracurriculars they choose to do if they wish to stand out on their college applications. So even there, you get a lot of competitiveness. Also, on the talk of competitiveness, I know here in the United States, a lot of my friends, they just take APs, not because they want to study the subject, but just because it'll give them an edge in the college application process and help them stand out from other students. So that's my response to competitiveness. I think it's increased over on all fronts in your system, the college application system, and on the test-based system. Now, the second thing about one exam holding too much significance, that is one point I have to concede that yes, we have one test where there's just too much significance given to it. And if, say, you're sick or you're unable to attend the test, you can't perform at your best and get what you actually truly deserve. And that's true. So there's a large element of luck that comes in, right, on whether you're fully fit and fully prepared for the test. But I see that while we have one exam that holds too much significance, the college application system has significance in all its steps. So it's not like you can devote all of your efforts into just studying for an exam and cracking it, like in the test-based system, but you have to devote it to your grades, to your extracurriculars, to your college essays. So I feel that that is more taxing on the student. Now, yes, even the tests are getting harder, so focusing completely on that takes a lot of effort as well. So in that sense, I would like to say that both systems put the same amount of strain on the students. And I don't think it's the system aiming to pressurize students too much, but it's just that the system is forced to do it, considering the number of students that it has to choose between. And finally, tuitions and educational counselors that you brought up. I think that's a very important point that we have to devote a lot of this discussion to, because with college application systems and the tests getting harder and harder every year, we are seeing a growth in tuitions. So the first tuitions I remember were in the 1980s in Kota, Rajasthan, and they were just small-scale tuitions taught by a teacher to students who wanted to crack the exam. And back in those days, not many people used to attempt the test. There would be way fewer students than there are now, so they weren't that popular. But as these tuition centers started garnering attention because they got their students into the top IITs, people realized how lucrative this tuitions can be. Right, the business of tuitions. So they all saw a lot of competitors started coming to them, and you got all these tuitions popping up all across India. And like today, I can list out so many of them: Byju's, Allen, Akash, and then Resonance, Base. So all of those tuition centers exist today, and they're taking students, they're attracting them by showing them the promise that they can be a topper on the exam and get into an IIT of their choice. And they're able to get a lot of students. And what I've seen from inside is that they choose a handful of students who do really well on the initial tests and who they know can top the exams if they're given the right study material and guidance, and they focus all of their resources on them. So it's like you have a batch of 30 students from across a city who are all focused and grinded together, right, to do their best on the exam. And then of them, probably 20 to 25 of them are able to do really well on the test. Then those students are whom these tuition centers advertise to new prospective students. So they say you can be just like them. But in reality, what happens inside the tuition center is a whole different story. Not everyone's given the same resources, and that leads to widely disparate results, and also not they are in a sense misleading parents. And I think if you've followed recently, Byju's has been accused of selling their courses to students with whose parents are not very well off, so they're caught in a vicious cycle of loan debts. So I think these are some predatory tactics that these tuitions employ. And when I'm talking like this, I'm not saying that all tuition centers are bad. I'm just saying that tuitions have become more of a business now than an attempt to help a student do better on an exam, which is extremely hard. Yes, they still hold an element of that, but then more of it is being treated as a business, and the tuition owners are trying to pull a profit. And I think a similar thing can be told about educational consultants and counselors, because right now here, I know most of my friends have hired private counselors to help them with their college applications. And yes, it is very expensive. So it's a very lucrative business for these counselors. And they're essentially feeding on the fear of parents that their student has not done enough or their child has not done enough to get into college. So yeah, you have a parent who's extremely paranoid that my student has done all of this. He's done boxing, he's done soccer, he's sung, he's played the piano, he's gotten good grades. Is that enough to get him into an Ivy League? And then here comes along a counselor who says, no, this is not enough. This is what you have to do. All right. And then for their advice, they charge exorbitant fees. And then parents who really want to see their kids go to a top college, like an Ivy League, they're like, yeah, fine, we'll pay it, but then you have to get them into college. And honestly, at the end of the day, it's not the college counselor who's reviewing your essay, it's an admissions counselor at the college. So nobody really knows what they're looking for, especially with the requirements changing every year. And by the requirements, I mean what the college counselors are looking for in the students. So not every year are they prioritizing GPA. They might also be prioritizing getting a more diverse class, or they might want to get more first generation college students in, right? So with those sort of requirements, you really don't know what they're looking for. So, and in a sense, you can't really start off with new things in the middle of your high school, like in 10th, 11th grade, because your academics is also important at that point. So when that happens, I think that educational counselors are not really being very helpful. They're just taking a lot of fees. How would you reply to that?
Well, yeah, I do agree with your points on the perspective of how the college application system is not completely, off. It's not the perfect system, even when we compare to the entrance exam, test-based entrance examinations. And yeah, I do agree with the fact of how education counselors have become expensive and how tuitions have become a business. And certainly because one of my friends who studies in Allen, he he told me that just because he scored low in one of his entrance examinations, he's right now in the lowest ranked classes, where classes are hardly held, and so on and so forth. I'm not targeting any particular in the tuition center in this perspective. I'm just saying this from the perspective of what I know and what I've heard from. And certainly it has become a business because parents are ready to spend exorbitant amounts of money just to see their children join like one of the best universities, so that because it makes sense as well, right? As much as it is the pride of a child to say, yeah man, I joined IIT, it is for the same in the case of a parent. My son or my daughter is studying in IIT, which I agree on the perspective that tuition centers and consultants feed on that particular fear that that will my child get into this particular college or not. Getting to the point of educational counselors, yes, it has become, I think, one of the most lucrative businesses for, and one of the most profitable, in fact, given the fact that we have right now reached a population of 8 billion in the world. And many students are understanding the importance of what exactly colleges are. So yeah, I do agree on that particular per se. In fact, one of my another one of my friends back home in India, he was talking about that when he was trying to get into, he started to look for studying law as a topic in the United States, and whereas the educational counselor who was in India, this situation is in India, by the way. They are already paid by particular universities or colleges to keep pushing them so that they keep getting more admissions and more students towards their particular universities. So yeah, educational counselors do play a certain amount of, pushing towards a particular university or not. In terms of the Ivy League, definitely, I agree with the statement that no matter how foolproof you might make your essays, how much you might have done over 1,000 extracurriculars over your entire high school, but in the end, it really depends on what the college exactly wants, because in the end, it is the college and university's decision of who they're looking for, because the requirements, as you said, keeps changing. So yeah, I think you pretty much made solid statements and gave significant proof as well to the fact that how it has become more of an industry, and it impacts students and will be continue impacting students unless, of course, a change is seen in the future.
Now, I think we should address the reasons why the system has become this way. And like I did state, it's because of the increasing population. But that's not the only reason. It's because most of the parents right now, they've also all attended college and they know how useful it can be to get a college education, especially in areas like STEM and engineering and medicine, where there's a demand for jobs. But what we do got to realize is that this demand is not going to exist forever. At the rate at which we're churning out engineers and doctors, that demand is also going to slowly subside. You're not going to have as many openings. And when that happens, you're going to have a lot of people who just studied engineering but now are just competing with other engineers. So in that sense, this rat race that starts off as a young child continues even into the future. And that's a misconception I see a lot of students having, that if I study well and I get into an Ivy League or an IIT in India, then I'm set for life. But that's not really the case. At the rate at which our world is changing every day, right? With new technologies like AI and all those developments coming at a rapid pace, you got to keep evolving yourself. You got to keep building on your skills, becoming better than what you were yesterday. So that means learning a new skill every year, learning a new programming language, being able to handle not just the technical aspects, but also the managerial aspects, because a lot of companies are trying to get just their technical leads to actually lead their entire teams. And in that way, with more and more jobs being combined into a few, you got to be increasing your skill set. So just getting into a good college is not enough. But for a young student, how can you tell that to them, right? You want to make them feel motivated to study hard for their college or do the best that they can on their college application. So that's why I think parents are also putting that undue pressure by saying, you just need to go into this college and then your life is set. But then the real world is vastly different from that.
And yeah, I agree with you on the those particular on that particular stance as well. In fact, I mean, coming to UWC, and I got a really new perspective on how people look into universities in an international level, is the fact that it really differs from culture to culture, because certain people are like colleges are not that important as well, I want to become a businessman. I want to become an entrepreneur. So I'm just going to understand what I'm going to do. I know what my market is, and that's how I'm going to go ahead. So for some of them, it's not essentially important to go into a college or a university. But on the other hand, parents who have already finished going to universities do know the importance of it. And like in India, they say that अगर तुम इस यूनिवर्सिटी और कॉलेज में घुस गए, अगर तुम IITN बन गए, तुम्हारा लाइफ सेट है. Loosely translated in English, it means that if you get into this university or college, or if you get into IIT, your life is set. You don't need to worry about anything else. But what they forget is the fact that maybe the child or the maybe the student is has different interests. Maybe he even if he wants, even if he does not want to join an IIT or any particular thing subsequently like that, it's completely fine. But parents on the other hand are like, in fact, like when we discussed the concept of arts and humanities in India, they're like, there's no particular job opportunities or career opportunities if you go into arts, which I think is a very wrong point of view from the parents' perspective. It's a perspective that is slowly changing, but it and will change in the subsequent years. But it is still prevalent, especially in various places in India, and that's why the additional pressure is given on the students to be the best of the best, the creme de la creme of students, just because they can say my child has gone into so and so university. And I think I am going to repeat this again and again across this episode, is not very necessary or essential. Depends on what the student or the child or the kid really wants to do in his future.
Now, you did bring up parental pressure, and you and I brought it up earlier in this episode. And I think I would like to restate my point that parents actually care a lot about their students, and that's why they're putting this pressure. Because based on what they have seen, they've not seen a lot of people who have taken up humanities really succeed. And in their minds, succeeding is like making a good salary, having a home and a car, right? That's the sort of life that they're imagining, right? Most of them, at least based on how they were brought up, right? Because back in the day, when they were all in school and attending college, that was sort of the dream. And they still hold those beliefs nowadays. And that's why they want their children to do well. And it's not a bad thing. It's just that they have opinions and aspirations that the child cannot really understand because it's not exactly from the same time.
Yeah, I have to agree, and I like to restate my point as well, that I am not stating the fact that parents don't care for their children, or don't care for the children. I'm just stating on the fact that since since parents as well as children are from two completely different generations, where the parents have seen that only if my son or my daughter or my child or my kid is an engineer, a doctor, only then he will succeed in his life. That is all he wants. He should get a good decent salary, and he should drive so and so car. He should have a big mansion. That's the concept, and that's the mindset of a large number of parents. And I'm not disagreeing with the fact that that is a very important mindset, especially from the particular scenarios or things that they have seen while they were growing up as well. And that's the reason why they're enforcing the amount of pressure on their kids and the students. But as you said, with the changing times, we need to adapt and we need to evolve as well. Our education systems as a whole need to adapt, because students are already under insane pressure. I don't think I can. I think it's stress. It's one of the main points that we need to stress on is that even us as students, we are under intense amount of pressure, not only from parents but also from the if I mean, it depends. Now, if you're an Indian student, you have insane amount of pressure from parents, from tuition centers, from your own relatives, from friends, etc., 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 just to perform your best. Yeah, even I don't know how the concept is in the United States, but even over here, the concept of getting really good grades in the IB, understanding how and what is required, your extended essays, and the large number of stuff. It is a huge amount of pressure. All I'm requesting is on the fact, or rather, I'm stressing on the fact, is that we need to change how we are going ahead, with the examination systems. And as a result, even with the test-based entrance examination system or the college application system, which we had brought up in the first base of how our podcast started today, both of them have the significant points in which there's a large number of points in which they fail to consider what the student is doing, or what the student is how the student is performing. The point comes to the fact that if we want to keep up with the current times, we need to also evolve our education system. And only with the evolving education system can we, as students, as the future generation, as the generation that will lead us to the next milestone of human existence, can we go ahead and understand, can we go ahead and make better future human beings, world citizens for tomorrow.
Yes, and you brought up the most important point of evolving our education system. And that's what we're really struggling to do nowadays, because the people who are in charge of keeping the education system up to date, they don't really know what is required from students at this time. And they do try their best and they implement policies, but then a lot of times it's done in isolation, not considering all the views, like from the employers, from the students, from the teachers, about how society is progressing and what skills students need to develop to keep up with the times. And this test-based system and the college application system have existed for like a few generations now. And I think we can see where the problem lies. It's just that the systems are way too outdated to be useful in the present times, where neither system is really testing the student and getting out and helping them learn the skills that they need to be successful after high school and after college. Like for a test-based system, you just need to be able to take a test. Now, but nowhere in the real world are you just only taking a test. You're solving real problems on the fly. And that does not involve memorizing for a test or studying for a test in advance. And the same thing with the college application system. You're just talking about the extracurriculars and the college essays and the opportunities you've had and how you've taken advantage of them. But that in the system, again, you're just saying that this is what I did. And you're just stating it out. You're not saying what you did passionately. Now, yes, there are some activities you do passionately, but mostly I've seen a lot of my friends and a lot of people take activities that they're not wholly interested in, but they're doing it because it sort of pads up their resume and makes them look good on a college application. In that sense, students are not able to develop the skills that they really need to be succeeding.
Yeah, I completely agree on that perspective. No, even on the fact that both the systems have considerably become outdated. But if we have to, introduce, say, a new system of education, how would it, be different from the test-based entrance examination or the college application system? What are your opinions or ideas on it, Vineet?
Yeah. Now, that's where my opinions can differ from everybody else. So, and it's not like us students are very well equipped to answer this question. We would tend to answer it based on our interests, right? On the fields that we are interested in. So, probably we should have different systems for students who are interested in different things. And in the earlier years of schooling, you should be introduced to all of them so that you can choose for yourself what system or what you're particularly interested in. And as parents, also, we should encourage our students or our kids for their choices rather than just forcing on them one system just because there is a greater potential to make money in that sense. So, like how I would say is have different systems, say for humanities, arts from a very young age, right? Probably from the start of high school. Just focus you on the subjects that you want to learn and probably change the way you're graded into more projects, right? Rather than just having a classwork where you answer questions in class or homework, right? And then a final test. You just have to work on projects. And these projects are not assigned by the teacher, they're completely your choice. So you work on what you think is important to you. Now, there are some students who are going to struggle with this and who are going to need help. And that's where the teacher comes in. So they help the student find things that they would be passionate about and try to solve the problems themselves. And say we have a robotics class, right? In the robotics class, you could probably spend a day or two of the week teaching things about microcontrollers or robotics, 3D printing, logic gates, topics like that. And then you could spend the rest of the time giving students the opportunity to use the skills they have learned to build things, solve problems, right? Or as a teacher, if you need to help students, you could say, look, these are the problems that I have in my classroom. Would anyone want to solve that? That is one way. Or you could say, what are some problems you have seen? What do you want to solve? Or what is some gadget that you want to build for yourself? And that could work in a robotics class that you're taking. And probably in math class, these are just examples. So in math class, you could, instead of just having a textbook which you solve problems out of, you could have more interactive activities. You just want to make the students feel involved and feel like they are doing something rather than that the teacher is making them do something. And the teacher should only be there as some sort of mediator to make sure that all students are able to learn what they've chosen to learn. Now, how you're going to test this is going to be difficult, and that's where the test-based system might not be the most helpful. And probably that's where the college application system would shine, because rather than just looking at your grades, you can talk about the multiple projects you've done. Right now, for those sort of opportunities, you got to take extracurriculars and go outside of school. But then if schools can implement that system themselves, then you can talk about the things you've done at school, right? And then you don't even really need to be padding up any of your achievements. You can say, I went and did this research. I was passionate about this. And that way you can really show what you're passionate about rather than feigning passion and talking about a ton of extracurriculars you did not really feel passionate about. Right? And when you can talk about what you're passionate about, it makes the college admissions counselor see you more clearly that, okay, this is the person, this is what they're passionate about, and this is what they've gone to fulfilling that passion, and this is what they might even do at our college.
Yeah, I think do bring up some solid points, and if even if I had to, as a student, make up a new form of examination or a new way of selection of students into universities, you're right. My opinions would certainly differ from a larger number of students from different students across the world, but. I think my approach would be very similar to what you have, and I think that might be set out as an opinion, or is that something that might help, into future implementation of education as a whole, is the fact that we might implement different phases or factors of learning on the perspective of what the student is much more, as the word you keep using, passionate about. Because passion is one of the most key and influential things that will take you forward in life. Personally, I feel that passion is one of the most important things that can take you forward. If you don't have the passion, if you don't have the fire inside you to do what you love to do, there is no particular use of just doing the same thing again and again just for the sake of it. And parents should also be introduced and explain these systems in detail on the fact that so that they are aware, especially in a country like India, since I'm an Indian. My main ideology or the perspective of the fact would be that instead of just focusing on mass producing engineers and doctors from universities as if it's a complete business, we should treat on the fact that maybe certain students want to do something else, something different than others. Maybe one of them wants to become a singer, one of them wants to become dancers, and I think parents should give and I think with the education system that we are talking about, the so-called different forms of education system that really gives not only the students but also the parents to understand who their kid is as a whole, what are they passionate about, and what they want to do in life.
Yes, and also one thing I think we should talk about is that society should increase the opportunities that are available to students pursuing different paths, because presently there are limited opportunities, and that's what makes it a very competitive field. With growing population, but the same or possibly shrinking opportunities, you're going to have people competing at the end. So I'm not saying that competition is bad. I'm saying that we should decrease the competition. That way, more people are able to truly follow their passions. And that's what I believe that human life should be about, following your passions rather than being forced to do something you don't like for the rest of your life.
Completely, I agree with you as well. I don't think I can add any other point to that particularly, other than the fact that I will completely agree with you on the perspective that we need to reduce the state of competitiveness so that we can so that students can focus on their passion rather than guessing on the fact that, hey, how much did Rohit get, bro? Oh, he scored this much, I have to score this much on the next test as well. That kind of situation or attitude, I think we as a society need to evolve or grow out of. And yeah.
Yeah, well, with those impassionate talks, we come to the end of this 8th episode here on The Student's Opinion. This episode will be exclusively available on Spotify for the first 2 days, after which it will be on YouTube, Amazon Music, and Google Podcast. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel to be notified when future episodes drop, and comment on what you thought of this episode. If you have any suggestions, be sure to email us at contact.thestudentsopinion@gmail.com. For now, it is Medhaansh and I signing off.